to this podcast, the Heidelminicast.
It's a Heidelminicast. And now, Scott Clark.
We got questions about singing a cappella during worship services. And what about having two services in the morning?
If the Heidelcast helps you, won't you help us keep it going? Please make the coffer clink by clicking on the PayPal link or by sending a check to Heidelberg Reformation Association, 1637 East Valley Parkway, number 391, Escondido, California, 92027.
Well, my baby, she wrote me a letter. And we've got correspondence to catch up with.
Well, let's read some emails, shall we?
And the first one is from another Jared, who identifies as a particular Baptist. Very good. Well, hi, Jared. Thanks for listening. And he says, hello, Dr. Clark. I really appreciate the show and the blog. Well, thanks for listening and thanks for reading. They've helped me think through a number of topics. I have a practical question. Is there a common practice to leading a cappella psalms? As a former professional musician, I understand the importance of singing in a key that encourages congregational singing. Very practically, how does the minister lead or start the congregation in singing without instruments? Thank you for your time and your work. Well, that is a very good question, Jared. Whichever number Jared you are, we have a large number of Jareds listening to the Heidelcast. So that's great. I'm a fan of Jared's. Here's what the traditional practice has been. And by the way, this is a great reason why you should get a copy in some form or other of Recovering the Reformed Confession, which is, as I'm speaking to you right now, out of stock at Reformation Heritage Books. And so you have to go for the least expensive copy right now. Now, again, this is as I'm talking to you. When you're hearing this, I don't know what things will be. So you could check RHB, which is heritagebooks.org. But right now, prpbooks.com, I think, Presbyterian and Reformed, the publisher. That's P&R Publishing. They have the lowest price, and they have copies. And there are copies at Amazon that are about $8 a volume more. So it's so FYI. And also there is an audiobook version, and there is an ebook version. And those are both a little less expensive. So I say that because I discussed this issue in Recovering the Reformed Confession, and the traditional practice was, among the Dutch churches, for example, to use what they called a Voorzinger, and the Latin is praecantor, and or a precentor is how it has come to us in English, and that's the RPCNA, the Covenanter practice. And so they have somebody with a pitch pipe, and if somebody says, see, you're using instruments, my answer is, fine, we'll ditch the pitch pipe. That's a fair objection. You can't say we won't use instruments, but we'll use a pitch pipe. Okay, right. I concede that immediately. I won't argue for that. So then you need to find somebody who has reasonably good pitch. Now, here's something that I find in talking to musicians, and I know them reasonably well. I'm married to one, and my kids both are musicians. And in our house, they say, the various instruments that they play, and then they say, but Dad just plays the radio, or now I guess the podcast. But so I don't have any musical ability. I was stubborn, and I took cornet lessons for a while, or at least played in a grammar school band, but mostly I didn't play. Just sit back there and fake it is sort of what I did. And that was probably for the best. At any rate, I know from living with musicians and helping to raise a couple of them that they tend to place more emphasis on aesthetics than I think God does. I don't think you can prove from Scripture that God is all that concerned about aesthetics. Consider, Israelite singing through the history of redemption. What did that sound like? it probably, now I know there are highly skilled singers and musicians, but just thinking about, for example, in the intertestamental period where they did not use instruments, and I'm thinking about the synagogue, what did that singing sound like? My guess is that oftentimes it sounded like somebody was torturing cats. So now that having been said, I have had the pleasure of singing with my Reformed Presbyterian brothers and sisters lots of times. I preached in lots of our PCNA congregations, and the singing, whether the congregation is small, medium, or large, is marvelous because they really work at it. So you just need somebody who's reasonably close to the pitch and the key to get people started, and they did it with a presenter.
The Heidelcast.
It's also been the case that the presenter would line out a psalm, so sing a line, and then the congregation would follow. But mostly, we've used the presenter to get people started, and we have sung together by singing, metrically. So that is how that works. So it's quite possible to do this, right? Instruments are not of the essence of singing. Lots of people have sung a cappella. So if you just go, for example, to Crown and Covenant, you can hear lots of recordings of people singing the Psalms a cappella with no musical instruments, which is what a cappella means. No musical instruments whatsoever. So clearly, instruments are not of the essence. So that's how that works. The presenter, or the Voorzinger, if we're doing it in Dutch.
You got some letters?
We do. The second one here is from Anonymous, who asks or says, "Hello, Dr. Clark. I was curious what your thoughts are on having two identical morning services to accommodate larger churches. Seeing as most Reformed churches have one morning service, are there biblical and historical arguments against multiple identical morning services?" Not that I know of. That has been the practice of my current congregation. Now, we have a facility that allows us to gather all together in the morning without having to divide up into, as it were, two congregations. But for years and years, when we had a smaller facility and a larger congregation, then they would have an early service and they would have a later service, and the services were identical. So I don't know of any biblical reasons not to do that. I don't know of any principial reasons not to do that. I would put this under circumstances. People invoke the category circumstances all the time to justify whatever it is they want to do. Well, we're going to use musical instruments because we'll call it a circumstance. Now, a circumstance is something that's imposed on you by circumstances. And circumstances don't require musical instruments. But in the nature of things, circumstances require that we meet at a common time and a common place, that we use a common language, or at least a translator. Those are things that are imposed on us by nature. And obviously instruments are not imposed on us by nature. And as I said previously, you can prove that easily just by listening to people sing a cappella. Clearly they're singing and they're not using instruments, therefore they're not necessary. Therefore they're not a circumstance. But this would be a circumstance. You're out of space. And in order to accommodate the lack of space, we'll hold two services and we'll conduct them identically. So that's just an adaptation to circumstances.
Thanks for listening. Tune in tomorrow for more from the Heidelcast, brought to you by Heidelberg Reformation Association.org. Don't forget, when the coin in the coffer clinks, the cost of bandwidth shrinks. Copyright Heidelberg Reformation Association. All rights reserved. This is a Heidel Media production.
The best podcast.